All right, let's just jump right in. Most of us think that UFO disclosure is the end goal, right? The final whistle, the big win for the truth. But what if getting that win is actually walking right into a trap? We're going to break down Dr. Stephen Greer's pretty intense theory that this whole fight for disclosure, it's just one battle in a much, much bigger war. A war humanity could easily lose.
And this quote right here, this is the heart of the whole thing. See, for Greer, it's not about if disclosure happens, it's about how it happens. He's convinced that the way it's being set up is meant to steer us down a path of fear and control, a future that would make today look like the good old days. So, what on earth does he mean by that? Let's get into it.
He calls it a Pyrrhic victory, the kind of win that cost you so much, you basically lost anyway. The idea here is that our public demand for the truth is being hijacked, twisted, to serve a completely different agenda that's been in the works for a very long time.
And here's the absolute core of his argument. The real endgame for the people pulling the strings isn't about telling us the truth about ETs. Nope, it's about creating an enemy, a permanent, scary, galaxy-spanning threat that can be used to scare the entire world into a state of panic, justifying a new age of total military control. It's the classic trade. Give up your freedom for the promise of safety.
Okay, so if there's a master plan, who's the mastermind? Who is this Goliath in the story? Well, Greer doesn't point his finger at the White House or the official government. He says the real power is a shadowy group that's been operating behind the scenes for the better part of a century.
To really get who he's talking about, you have to know the term he uses, TINCO. It stands for Transnational Criminal Organization. And he's not just talking about some secret club. He's defining a rogue, corporate military entity that has illegally seized control of all the old UFO programs. They're operating with money that's completely off the books, and, this is the crucial part, they have access to advanced, reverse-engineered alien tech that puts them way beyond the law.
And let's be clear, he's not talking about some benign secret society. He alleges this group is a full-blown criminal enterprise. We're talking about everything from staging fake alien abductions to confuse everyone, running drugs and weapons to fund their black projects, and even, he claims, wet work, assassinations to keep people quiet. He even accuses them of actively gaslighting top generals and officials, making them think they're crazy to keep the whole thing under wraps.
This slide just lays it out perfectly, the power dynamic Greer is describing. You've got David, that's the official U.S. government. Congress, the Pentagon. Believe it or not, in this story, they're the underdog. And then you've got Goliath, the TINCO. This group has, he claims, an 80-year head start, technology we can't even imagine, and a budget that makes the Pentagons look tiny. They're a permanent fixture, long after presidents are gone. So, when you have that kind of power, what's your number one weapon? It's not some crazy spaceship or a death ray. According to Greer, it's much simpler and much more effective. It's fear. Their entire strategy, he says, is a gigantic psychological operation to make every last one of us absolutely terrified of an alien threat.
So you've got these two stories basically going head to head. On one side, there's the threat narrative. You know this one. Aliens are hostile, they abduct people, they're an existential threat we all need to unite against. But then you have Greer's counter-narrative, which says all of that is a man-made hoax, that the scary abductions and all that, that's the TINCO using their secret tech to frame peaceful ETs and build a case for an interstellar war.
So, how do you sell a story like that to 7 billion people? Well, Greer points a huge finger at Hollywood. He believes it's one of the main tools for getting this idea of a hostile alien threat lodged deep inside our collective brain. And get this, for a wild example. He claims that after Steven Spielberg made the hopeful films Close Encounters and E.T., he was personally targeted. Greer alleges that they staged a home invasion using advanced electronic warfare systems to create a terrifyingly real but totally fake alien encounter, all to scare Spielberg and push his filmmaking toward a more threat-based view of ETs. This all leads to what Greer calls the Wizard of Oz effect. His whole goal is to pull back the curtain and show everyone that this big, scary threat is just a handful of people pulling levers and pushing buttons. He's convinced that the moment we see the trick, the fear just evaporates, and so does their power. Now, to make the case that a deception this massive is even possible, Greer says, look, this isn't a new idea. There's a historical playbook for this kind of manipulation, for tricking the public into war. And he points to one famous event in particular as the blueprint.
He brings up the Gulf of Tonkin incident, the event that really kicked off the Vietnam War. He says the playbook is simple. Step 1, you stage an event where you wildly exaggerate a real one. Step 2, you use the media to blast that story everywhere and whip up public fear and anger. And step 3, that manufactured outrage forces the politicians' hands. They have to take military action to please the public, all to the benefit of the war machine.
And this is exactly why controlling the story is so important. As Greer puts it, in a democracy, politicians are basically slaves to public opinion. So, if a hidden group can shape and corrupt what the public believes through fear and propaganda, they can essentially control the government's actions without ever being elected.
Okay, so you're up against this all-powerful Goliath. What do you do? Well, Greer says waiting for the government to solve this is a fool's errand. He's convinced the only way to fight back is from the ground up, with a massive grassroots movement, a we the people solution.
So his solution has a few key parts. First, you have to bypass all the official gatekeepers, the government, the media. He advocates for things like his C5 initiative, which is all about citizens taking it upon themselves to try and make peaceful contact. The main strategy is to just spread awareness, to expose the trickery, as he calls it, and ultimately, to help people achieve a kind of spiritual awakening that makes them immune to the fear-mongering.
And that really is the final piece of the puzzle for him. This isn't a political war, it's a spiritual one. He argues that the ultimate weapon against this whole sophisticated fear machine isn't a policy or protest, but a shift in human consciousness. Because a person who isn't afraid simply cannot be controlled, and that, he says, is the real path to winning the war.
So we're left with this thought. If Greer's right, and the real war is for our minds and hearts, it kind of forces you to look at everything a bit differently, doesn't it? It makes you question the stories we're being sold, not just about what's in the sky, but about what's on our screens every single day.